Hello, Gary.
Hey, Peter.
Good morning.
I see you started the recording a little early. I guess that's not a problem.
I think you're muted. I don't,
I'm not muted.
because I'm not hearing
hear
you.
me?
Huh.
Hmm.
And it's recording
I know.
already, but let me see how I stop video, mute.
So I'm not muted.
I'm unmuted. If you can hear me, put up
I
one
can.
finger. Okay, you can. Okay. I cannot hear you for
And
whatever
I'm not
reason.
muted.
Let me see what else might be the reason. And I
Okay.
accused
Great.
Gary of his sound not working. It turned out the sound on my own computer was not working, but it took me 5 minutes to figure that all out.
Okay, so I'll start reading the script. As a preliminary matter, this is Gary Bella, Chair of the Advisory Committee for Non-Voting Taxpayers. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present, can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So I see Peter's here, of course, and Kathy's here, and I'm here, nobody else yet. Okay, and anticipated speakers. Manager Libby Gibson is with us. Good morning, Libby. So she's here. Let me continue reading the script. This open meeting of the Advisory Committee for Non-Voting Taxpayers is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting allows public bodies to meet entirely remote, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. A meeting may feature public comment if anyone shows up. For this meeting, we are meeting by video conference as posted on the town's website. Please note the meeting is being recorded and all attendees participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Turning to the first item on the agenda, before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meetings. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to provide any comment, questions. Please hold until your name is called. In the meantime, remember, please mute your phone when you are not speaking. Please speak clearly when you do speak. And for any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor and state your name before speaking. Members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment for those members of the public that have joined the meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged. Speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by roll call vote. But I see Gardner has joined us. Hi, Bill. How are you this morning? And I see Bill Sherman has joined us. That's great. So now let me just give you some calculations that I've been making that I may or they may be correct. With our current membership, three of us terms normally expired on June 3rd, the end of the fiscal year, and we all were re-invited. Libby re-invited all of us to renew. The three of us were myself, Don Green, and Lou Bassano. Thank you for that, Libby. And so I responded, and we got the letter, and I actually went and got sworn in yesterday or the day before. I don't know if Don Green has taken that step yet, nor do I know if Lou Bassano has taken that step yet. What that means is that, and Sue Matloff has never come to any of our meetings in the last 2 years, so we won't hear from her. Mary Russell, whose term expired on June 30, has resigned from our committee because she's a doctor and she's been appointed to some National Health Service Board, which she says takes a lot of her time, and she won't be able to spend time with us. So, and we never got an answer as to whether Jay Cohn ever signed the oath and became a member. So that means we have actually 6 currently until Don Green and Lou Bassano's take the oath. We have 6 members and we have 4 now. So guess what? That means we have a quorum. So that's great. We actually, so we have a quorum, and the first item of business just quickly is to approve the agenda, which you've all gotten. So can I have a motion to approve that?
Move.
Okay, Peter, and second?
Second.
Bill, okay, and let's vote. Peter, yes. Bill, yes. Bill, yes. Kathy, yes. Okay, we're all set with the agenda item. So let's, now I think the next item on the agenda, I think we'll hold the minutes till after, since Libby's with us today, and we have to thank Libby. Libby was with us a few weeks ago when we tried, and the technology defeated us. I said to Peter before we were chatting, I said, you know, there's an old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So here we are, we're non-technological people and we're struggling to get in. Libby was nice enough to hang in as long as she could, and Peter couldn't figure out a way to crack the code. Town has some complicated code. that we weren't aware of in order to hold a meeting by Zoom. So thank you again, Libby, for giving us a second opportunity to hear your comments today. And we're interested in hearing what's going on in town. I do watch the select board meetings, and I listen to your reports, and I am always dumbfounded with the large number of important matters going on at the same time, and in a period of time where our infrastructure is under such unbelievable pressure because of all the reasons that people know about, lack of able to fill openings and things like that. So anyway, Libby, delighted to hear you. Please tell us
Thank you
what's going
so
on.
much. No problem about last time. I tried to interfere with getting the Zoom going also, and my technology expertise is maybe even more limited than yours. So it was a complete fail, as we know. But anyway, I'm happy to be here today and that we could work it out. I wanted to start with an unanticipated item, which is a fire downtown. And I wanted to give you a quick overview of what I just sent to the select board about the fire. So I don't know if people are aware of it, but it's pretty.
I saw the smoke.
Fire. Yeah. So here's what I said to the board at about 8:40 this morning. Mutual aid was scheduled to arrive from the Cape, 4 to 8 firefighters by 10:30. I don't know if they're here yet. They weren't gonna bring a truck. They were just gonna provide some resources. The Veranda House is a total loss. So this is a little over an hour ago. The fire wasn't out yet. 2 nearby structures were involved. Deputy Chief Mitchell was on scene commanding. Chief Murphy was present by text, but he was at home recovering from recent shoulder surgery. Culture and Tourism Director Shanta Blois Murphy was on top of communications with the Lodging Association, assisting with displaced people and travel. She reported that the Lodging Association has relocated nearly everyone displaced. The Visitor Services Office opened early today to assist. She reported that JetBlue and Cape Air are also actively working with people on travel rearranging. The Highline Operations Manager, Liz Holland, texted me this morning very closely after we knew what was happening with what Highline was doing to help with travel and other assistance. And she really went above and beyond. She was working with the airlines and providing all kinds of information. Fairwinds sent a clinical director down to assist with any issues, and we're making therapists available if needed now or later. And I let them know if there was more to report, I would let them know. And that's, I haven't really heard much else. I am looking out my window at the moment, and North Water Street remains blocked off. There's an ambulance, I think that is, and a fire pickup truck, and they all are still sitting there. And so every now and then I get a little update from David Gray, who's hovering about the area and sends photos every now and then. So that is what's going on, but it sounds like the response was rapid from fire and police. And so that's what's
and no injuries so far reported, right?
No injuries that I know of. Interesting sidebar comparison. Yesterday, I went over to the Vineyard with one of the assistant town managers, Rick Sears. We tried to have a little annual with the managers over there. And at the end of the day, we were departing from Oak Bluffs, and we heard a whole bunch of sirens and massive fire response to what was reported as a fire at their laundromat, which is down on the waterfront. And maybe half an hour later, after we heard the sirens, we had to walk by it to get to the boat. And there were like 3 fire trucks, 2 ambulances. The road was totally blocked off. However, the report was that almost immediately a police officer had put the fire out with a fire extinguisher, and there was a little market in this laundromat building that was open and serving food. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. So I texted one of the managers this morning with a picture of our fire, and I said, this is a real fire over here. Anyway, just interesting meeting with them. So
Libby, my wife told me this morning that the fire actually leaped across the road. The veranda was burnt up,
Yeah.
I happen to know that a friend of mine is one of the investors in the group that owns a veranda, but it actually leaped across the road, and some other poor folks on the other side of the street had their buildings burned as well.
I haven't gotten a total report on that, but it did
Wow.
sound like there were other buildings involved.
Yeah.
I was thinking they were pretty lucky. It was pretty, I mean, I don't know who's right in the immediate area. Gary, you kind of are, but
No.
it wasn't windy down here.
No.
Thank God.
Yep.
So I was going to give you all a brief review of the 2022 annual town meeting and then some current town issues. So just briefly, annual town meeting overview. Our fiscal 23, the fiscal year we've just entered into, general fund operating budget hit 100 million for the first time. Enterprise funds operations for this fiscal year total about 50 million. We had some other non-operating budget expenses as well, 650,000 for health and human services. We annually provide health and human services organizations on the island an amount of funds. It goes through a grant process. 650 for that, plus 175 from a stabilization fund that we set up a couple of years ago for substance abuse that's funded through the marijuana tax. We approved $36 million in general fund capital projects that was funded through a variety of funding sources, free cash, prior years appropriations, debtor capital exclusions, 32 million in enterprise fund capital. And we had several standalone debt exclusions, all but one passed. And the one that didn't pass was a central municipal facility design appropriation. The idea is to centralize all town offices out at the 2 Fairgrounds site. That did not pass. As a result, we are going to have to seriously increase our facilities budget for fiscal 24. CPC projects, community preservation approved were 3.5 million. Some articles of note. Article 71, that was gender equality at beaches. We've all heard about that. Don't have much to say about that other than early on we developed a summary of it. It's on the town website under town meetings, I think. We were getting some calls early on from people who were both in favor and very much not in favor, asking about, you know, what's this going to mean? And am I going to go to Children's Beach and find women prancing around or topless women prancing around? Literally, people were asking stuff like that. So anyway, there's a summary online. There was also a ban on nip bottles, mini alcohol beverage bottles. That's Article 69. All of these things, by the way, have to go through the Attorney General's office, and that's where they are now. Articles 39, 42, and 43 were all short-term rental related. So brief summary on that. 39 was an authorization for the Select Board and the Board of Health to adopt regulations for short-term rentals, not anything to do with zoning, but regulations. So, for example, the biggest part of it is that they will all have to be registered starting January 1, 2023. We are going to be hiring a firm to help with that registration process, and they will be doing some other things as well, such as establishing a 24/7 hotline for short-term renters and neighbors who can call with complaints or issues, and they'll figure out how to deal with it and also monitor it. So the big thing is we want to monitor what sorts of complaints are coming forward and where they are coming from. 42 and 43 were zoning articles, competing zoning articles. And I think, as you know, there was a vote to establish a work group composed of officials from planning board, and so long story short, because it's gone through quite a bit of discussion over the past couple of weeks, there was an initial concern about conflict of interest issues with people serving on this work group. That's been pretty much resolved. Town council has worked it out with the State Ethics Commission. So between the Select Board, the FinCom, and the Planning Board, there is a pre-group that's working on recommending a framework for this work group that's supposed to be ultimately coming up with recommendations for the 2023 annual town meeting for zoning for short-term rentals. So the Select Board has had it on its agenda for the last month, maybe. FinCom discussed it a week or two ago, and the planning board is, I believe, discussing it on Monday. So hopefully this framework will be worked out very shortly, and people can start getting appointed to the work groups. Some points of contention have been, who is it going to appoint the work group? What are they going to do? And who's going to be on it? So that is all on its way to getting hopefully sorted out. They also would like to have a facilitator for the work group. So I've been charged with finding them a facilitator, and I have identified, I put out a request to my town manager group. Who does anybody have a good one? So I got a bunch of names back, and I've narrowed it down to 3. One of them I think isn't going to be able to do it because of timing and travel, and the other 2 I have discussions with next week, and hopefully by Wednesday I will have a couple of proposals for the board. There will be a cost to it, but Brian Turbot, the finance director, will have to work his magic on finding some funds for it. In other articles of note, Article 79 was the home rule petition that would ban fertilizer. That is also a bit contentious. We don't, at the admin and legal level, we don't think that's going to pass the legislature because there are already restrictions, state restrictions on how those things get regulated, how fertilizer is regulated. So I don't think that's going to pass. And there's already some discussion about another way to get at this between the Board of Health and the Planning Commission. So that is underway. Article 101 authorized a long-term lease for a shooting range out by the airport. We had, prior to town meeting, put out an RFP for this shooting range, and there had already been a lease in place previously with the Nantucket Hunting Association. And so that lease, so now that we have the RFP back, there was only one responder, the Hunting Association, that was expected. We're in the process of working on terms for the board to agree to, and that will be on their agenda sometime this month. So at this point, following town meeting, we've sent the home rule petitions to our legislative representatives to follow up on. The bylaws are with the Attorney General. There's some procurement issues and project managers that need to be assigned for the capital projects that were approved, and various work groups and internal staff outreach and implementation planning for what was approved. Current town issues, housing. Obviously, there's a lot going on with housing. The Affordable Housing Trust and other town housing initiatives include projects such as, these are either underway or in the planning stages. 27 Fairgrounds Road. Actually, that is off the table now. That was the Fairgrounds restaurant. I think that is not proceeding. 31 Fairgrounds Road, though, is next to the Fairgrounds restaurant. And if you're in that area driving by, you can see that's underway. Tacoma Green, which is the proposed development, community housing development across the street at 6 Fairgrounds, that remains in discussion with the board. There's a funding issue at this point in large part because the project got caught up in litigation early on, and in the meantime, costs have skyrocketed as well as interest rates. 36 and 38 Orange Street is an affordable housing property acquisition where there will ultimately be some housing. We've acquired some property at Vesper Lane in the Gwynn Village area. Richmond has some units that are dedicated to affordable housing. 30 Acres Lane, we just acquired half a duplex over there. And there's another parcel on Bartlett Road and some more areas that are either under discussion or in the process of being acquired. Year-round and seasonal town employee housing remains a serious issue also. And we are in the process of scheduling a state of housing select board workshop that is intended to review all of the initiatives that are underway, but in a non-technical manner. When people start talking about AMI and tax credits and things like this, people kind of glaze over. And so the intent of the housing workshop is to really have a big map, show where all these things are, and in general, what is happening with them. That was scheduled for Tuesday, the 19th, but then we found out that there's a State of the Harbor, that forum by the Nantucket Land Council, that is happening the same day at the same time. So we've moved ours, and I'm trying to pin it down to early August. So FYI on that, and we'll get some outreach out on that when we've got it scheduled. Town hiring is getting difficult due to the cost of living and housing. Obviously, we're working on a number of recruitment initiatives, retention initiatives, such as remote work, commuting, trying to come up with some out of the box ideas. There's not a good example of anywhere in the country that is like us. I mean, there are some similarities with places like Vail and Aspen and to some extent the Vineyard, but there's a difference here being out where we are, as far as we are. Last fall and winter, it became evident that this summer was likely to be very challenging with supply chain slowdowns, labor shortages, housing, and employee recruitment and retention difficulties, and perhaps more visitors than ever. So we developed a state of the town video. And the idea of it was to provide a broad overview of the state of town, including strengths, where we need patience and understanding, and initiatives we're in place to address the identified issues. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to watch it. I did dedicate it to Bill Sherman, because he has been asking for a state of the town address in a very long time. And he was kind of our inspiration for it. Coastal resiliency planning and planning for sea level rise and climate change and sustainability. All of these things are massive. They are taking a lot of time and energy and effort and resources. And there are so many things at play: projects, new positions, different thinking, operationalizing certain standards for specific types of projects, and how the town goes about developing projects and determining them, and just our general work. How do we become more sustainable? Renewable energy, climate action planning, all of that. And we're trying to work out how we're going to structure. Is it a department? Is it a coordinator or coordinators? Who's doing what, and how are we keeping track of everything? So we talk about this about every week. Long-term solid waste planning remains a high-level priority as well, including waste reduction initiatives, landfill operations. We had a meeting with our landfill operator a couple of weeks ago. The contract, the waste services contract expires in 2025, and we're working to put into place what needs to be in place to get a RFP out, or whatever, however we're going to proceed there. The select board strategic plan, I'm sure you all have seen it at one time or another, has 5 focus areas: transportation, environmental, housing, quality of life, efficient town operations, and each of those 5 areas has specific goals underneath it. And we're working on and giving the board an update. I think we last gave them an update earlier this year, and we're working on another one. The board also has a governance session plan. We like to have we call it a governance workshop. We like to have it after the election, so that if there's any new members specifically, get together and talk about, sort of revisit, how do they communicate with each other? How do they communicate with town admin? What are priorities and goals for the year? Things like that. That is scheduled for July 27th. It will be at the meeting trailer at 131 Pleasant Street, and it will be hybrid, so people can tune into it, but it's also in person if people want to go there. So they may talk a bit at that meeting about the strategic plan and what, if anything, they might want to modify. We also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI strategic plan underway. Specific things I tried to identify for you all that have come up that you've expressed some interest in. The government study committee, that is in my queue right now to put forward a kind of a mission statement for the board to appoint a new one that would focus on 2 things: the type of government for the town of Nantucket, and open versus representative town meeting. And the intent is to put 1 or 2 of you on the committee. It is in my queue, so that's coming. The short-term rental work group I mentioned already, and the open meeting law. There was a lot of activity this week about the open meeting law, and I know we all want the remote participation allowance to continue. So earlier this week, what I heard was the Senate approved the extension of remote participation through December. I believe it was through December of 2023, or it might have been through July of 2023, one or the other. But then the House decided to make hybrid meetings required. And that set off a firestorm around the state with towns because towns simply do not have the infrastructure, staffing, resources, equipment to have hybrid meetings and hybrid meetings only. So we're trying to sort out what are they thinking? And all the towns were really asking was, please just continue remote participation forever so that we can choose, if it's in person or, but with groups like you all, and even, as things go on, there may be needs to have other committees that can be, the FinCom, for example, was very helpful to have them be remote all of last year. And that might open up the opportunity for additional people that have an opportunity to serve on there. So I'm trying to get that sorted out. But at this point, there was supposed to be an expiration of remote participation on July 15th of 2022. My understanding is that is just going to be extended, but I don't have it in concrete writing. But I did speak with town council on Thursday, and the advice was keep doing what you're doing. So I took that to heart. Some general overall high level personnel issues. We are currently using a management firm to provide an administrator for our island home. We have had a very, very challenging time securing a full-time person to be to be the island home administrator on island all the time. So we have someone now who is on island most of the time. And the firm, but he is backed up by the firm who can help with a lot of other issues, regulatory questions, compliance issues, monitoring, tracking, and they're providing some professional services to help with the operations of the facility. We have replaced our second second assistant town manager. So when Rachel Day was one of the assistant town managers, she left in November. No, she left earlier this year to become the executive director at Sherburne Commons. And we have now filled the assistant town manager position with Rick Sears, who was the assistant finance director. And now we're looking for an assistant finance director. The collector is about to retire in the next couple of weeks. We have a replacement for her. We're searching for the assistant finance director, as I mentioned, and we are in the process of searching for a fire chief. Our Chief Murphy is retiring at the end of the summer, and we have engaged a search firm. We're hoping in the end, we've ultimately 2 finalists. They're going to be coming to the island sometime this month, hopefully for tours, meet and greets, things like that. And hopefully we will find them. Luckily for us, we do have a house that person that has been identified as being available for the fire chief. The town owns a house at 38 Westchester, and it's been kind of used for high level departmental positions with the hope that they're in there for a while and then eventually they get something around. That is now much gone. They're never going to get something on their own. So they're probably going to be there however long they're going to be.
I think Don Green is ought to put he's trying to join the meeting, but he ought to put his telephone on mute,
There
please.
you go.
Thank you.
And then just general, I'm sure you're all familiar with our outreach efforts, but I do have a monthly town manager e-newsletter. I go on the radio every Thursday morning to review what happened at the board meeting, just high level overview. We have social media on Twitter, Instagram, and our town website, and NCTV obviously covers all of the meetings. So that's what I just wanted to give you some updates on, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Oh, and also, sidebar, I am going to the Wisconsin Civic Association annual meeting on Monday, and the annual forum of the Community Association and the Civic, it's more being taken over by the Civic League now, is on Monday the 18th, July 18th at 9:30. That will be in person at the Fairgrounds community room.
Great. So Libby, there's something I'd like to ask you to do for our committee, and that is I would appreciate it if you could figure out how to include us on the regular ads that we see. The town puts these ads in the newspaper that says there are committee openings. And we would really love it if you could also mention, put us in the ads to say that there are openings. You know, when, on occasion, when we take a position on something and once in a while it's in the newspaper, people write in complaining about something that I wrote or something, you know, because I sign those things. And some people say, who are these people? Who are they? And why are they taking that position? And of course, we'd love to have more people participate. And some meetings we get a lot more. But so it would be helpful to us if our committee's openings were also indicated in those regular things. And you personally, when you're talking to some of these civic groups, just say, by the way, so a lot of you seasonal folks would like to participate as well. And we have a committee set up that reports to the select board purposely. And, you know, you have to send a note to me, Libby, and I'll review that. But we would love you to do that. Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I have a lot of comments to make, but I'll try to give my colleagues time for some of the others as well. First of all, I want to mention about the short-term rental thing. You know, I'm delighted that the advisory committee for non-voting taxpayers is among the different groups that will be in the final work group. So far, no one has objected to that. I think it's important that we have a voice. Something happened at the meeting last Wednesday night that just blew my mind. And I think it's misguided, and I'm thinking about going to the select board meeting next Wednesday and to say something about it. And that is, Matt Fee is so worried about people voting that he's now come to the conclusion that several of these organizations, such as our committee, such as Nantucket Together, such as Act Now, will be required if the rules that they were talking about, to put up 3 different nominees to participate in the work group, and the select board will decide, or the special committee will decide who will represent our organizations. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because our organizations, each one of them has a point of view, and it doesn't matter which one of us is appointed. In theory, we are speaking for the organization. It's not as if you appoint the right person and they'll come to a different view. So they're spinning their wheels a lot. For instance, let me give you an example that I might use if I speak on Wednesday. Talk about Act Now, right? In theory, based on what happened last Wednesday, they would say to Act Now, you're going to have to give us 3 names to be on the work group, and we will decide who the 3 names will be, right? So, I mean, if it isn't Tobias Glidden, and if it isn't Julia Lindner, then who's it going to be? They're not really speaking for Act Now, and it doesn't matter anyway, because Peter McCausland is going to make the decision anyway. So why is the select board, why is Matt turning himself into knots trying to figure out to get the right voters? It doesn't matter. It's an organizational vote, and he should understand that. Do you think it's worthwhile me saying something like that to him?
He's always open for feedback. So I'd say
I love Matt. I mean, I work with him on the Coastal Resilience Committee, but he keeps thinking that, you know, if he decides who from which committee, he doesn't know which of us will come out. None of us are going to be different than what our organization wants to do. So it seems like too much spinning. By the way, another comment I have about the whole process. I was very saddened that when John Giorgio, I like John, I was saddened to see that he determined that the work group has to be so official. That meant that, and he said, and his reason for stating that was because it was decided at the annual town meeting that a work group put together. The result of that is that then you get involved with all of the conflict of interest laws. And I mean, NARB should certainly be a part of that group, and they can't be under conflict law. And it's a shame, because the real solution to the short-term rental issue, I think there is a solution somewhere, is to get a bunch of people in a room together and just talk about what's your goal and what's our goal, and let's come to something, right? But if we're going to be bound, if the organization could be bound by these very strict open meeting laws and conflict of interest law, I mean, it's going to really slow the process down. But it's probably that horse is out of the barn already because John came to that conclusion. But anyway,
John, just very
Yes.
quick. John would tell you that, and he said this at one of the meetings, it isn't him who came to the conclusion. It's the State Ethics Commission and state law that came to that conclusion. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, the last comment I have is basically, we're watching what's happening this summer and last summer. And I don't know how the town's going to deal. I don't think we have the infrastructure. And I'm not sure we're ever able to have the infrastructure. You know, we had Rob Rainey talk to us about the ferry terminal last year, one of our speakers. And he said, there is no more capacity. He said, there's no extra capacity. It is what it is. So it means then the planes are going to have to increase again once they figure out how to hire pilots. But in the meantime, our whole island is now suffering from enormous pressure, and I'm not sure our infrastructure is able to deal with it. I mean, I think you guys are doing a great job, but it's tough. Anyway, I'll let my colleagues take the floor now and ask whatever they'd like to ask. Who would like to ask Libby questions? Nobody? I covered it all. Bill Sherman? You're on mute, Bill. Bill, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I did. Oh, okay. My question, Libby, is about transportation. I'm so smitten by roundabouts and how efficient they prove to be in almost every instance, as well as the Milestone Rotary. We need those upgrades. Can we get a little more support behind getting the funding to do those solutions?
So we have recently filled the transportation planner position with an individual who is remote working / commuting. So he is working from his home, which I believe he has recently moved from New Jersey to the Cape or is in the process of doing that. And he comes over maybe once a month for a couple of days. He has a pretty large number of projects on his plate to bring back up to where are we with our transportation planning. Right now, I think the select board and possibly the planning board have been a little bit wary about putting forward any more roundabout projects this moment, because the ones that they put forward sort of recently, for example, Bartlett Road and Surfside, were not supported by town meeting. And there are a couple of others that didn't seem to get a lot of support either. Fairgrounds and Old South, expansion of the Milestone Road, and there's been some talk about mini roundabouts at, say, Amelia Drive and Old South, possibly Surfside and Fairgrounds at South Shore Road. So I think all of that is, I mean, every summer it resurfaces, and we've got the, why don't we have roundabout people to the roundabouts are messing everything up people. I think my thinking is they clearly work, but they have to sort of integrate with each other. So how do we get more support? We need to get our plan more out there and developed, and it needs to be combined with some other infrastructure projects like sidewalks and pedestrian and access improvements. And we do have some funds for design and planning of those things. For example, the in-town bike path on Orange Street, a multi-use / sidewalk on Pleasant Street from Five Corners out towards the Stop and Shop. That is desperately needed. And it's going to be a matter of, I hear a lot of people, why isn't there a sidewalk here or there? It's largely because the right-of-way acquisition gets very complicated. Nobody wants the sidewalk or the bike path on their property. Why can't it be across the street? Sometimes there are utility poles in the way. Fire hydrants are easy to move, utility poles are not. So we start to run into these things and they take a long time to unravel. But you make a good point about the roundabouts. So I would say they are in progress, but it's slow going.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Peter?
Yeah, I agree with Bill Sherman's comment. And this committee has, over the years I've been on it, been, I think, used its voice to advocate for the roundabouts and decomplicating some of the traffic flows. And my observation is that, as Libby said, that it's at town meeting that it drops dead. And it appears to be I think, a small but not insignificant group of people who are against any progress in that direction. And I don't know how one can overcome it. We can spend a lot of time planning, and dreaming about the benefits of those plans, but there's something going on in the town that I think somehow needs to be addressed, either by better scheduling at the town meeting, making sure more people are around when the roundabout comes up, or what have you. I guess another component, and I think you sort of touched on this a bit, Libby, is the problems with actually acquiring the real estate. A roundabout doesn't just happen. You need a lot of real estate to build it. And I'm thinking right now of the school roundabout, yeah, and the sacred tree and whatever. And so it just ups the cost to a point that it really gets attention of the town voters. And these are just all these need to be solved problems, because the place is looking like a blocked artery right now.
Yep. By the way, speaking of town meeting, the 2023 annual town meeting was scheduled by the board last week. It will be on Saturday, May 6th.
So Libby, as you heard me say when I made a little speech to the select board a few weeks ago, what troubles me is that we have 9,200 voters, registered voters in the town of Nantucket, and the first day of the annual town meeting, we had less than 1,200 people, less than 11 people. So we had, my recollection is we had 12.4% of the population on the first day, and the second day we had, I know a couple of those items, including the topless beach item, 3.4% of the voters, and so that's why the end of my little speech to the select board a few weeks ago was that it really is time to get the town government study committee going again, because the model that we use is fine if you have a few thousand people in your population. When you have 9,000 or 10,000 people, just imagine if a third of the voters decided to go to the annual town meeting. Where would we put 3,000 people? I mean, we couldn't do it. So, and that in the old days when you had 1,000 or 2,000 people, the annual town, that sounded, and it worked fine. But I think our population, and by the way, the new census, my recollection is the new census shows we have over 14,000 residents, which means maybe, Libby, we can give you a new title. I think we're allowed to have a mayor with a town of 14,000. We couldn't for 10,000. So maybe we need to change a lot of things, but it's worthwhile for the town government study committee to take a look at that. The thing that they failed to do in their last process, they looked at a lot of things and they came up with some good ideas, some of which we supported, and those changes to some of the good town government showing up at the meeting and stuff like that, and getting petitions on on the warrant. Those are helpful. Hopefully the Attorney General will approve those. But they got sidetracked. The important thing they have to do is take a really look at the representative form of government, if that's the next best thing. And more important than that, we have to get it out to the public. We got to let the people know what it is so people aren't terrified with it. And they'll say, oh, they're going to take away my rights to vote, because even on the representative form of government, anybody can come to those meetings if they want to. I mean, the nice thing is in a few of the towns that have representative form of government, and I spoke to our moderator about this, Sarah Alger, they actually were able to meet electronically. And it was perfectly permissible under the current rules. So anyway, I'm glad you're thinking about that, and that hopefully the select board will get that committee resurrected in some form before too long, because population keeps growing like that. And it's always disappointing to me. Even nationally, we have the same problem. People don't, even as angry as people are about the way things seem to be, they still don't show up to vote, and it's very, very sad. So we were worried about the other thing you mentioned. We meet electronically. If July 15th, we didn't schedule our next meeting July 15th because in theory, July 16th, because in theory we can't meet electronically unless something is extended. And if we have to meet in person, I guess we're going to have to go to that trailer on Pleasant Street. Is that right?
Yeah, but I think it's sounding to me like, from my discussion with town council at the end of last week, something is going to happen.
In the next few weeks, next week or so, yeah.
Yeah, so proceed as you're proceeding now and go ahead and schedule a meeting.
Yeah, but I don't know if we should feel comfortable thinking that we can proceed electronically completely. That's what you're saying? Yeah.
I think you can.
Yeah. Peter?
So Libby, Gary mentioned our membership issue of it'd be nice to find more members. I thought I had, and I don't know whether you can help with this or who can. If we had a list of all these various town associations, like the Wisconsin Association, they are probably mostly made up of non-voting taxpayers, and we could reach out on our own, asking each one of them to send us recommendations for your approval for appointment to this committee.
Sure.
And I think maybe a slight, not a promise, but a mention that a lot of our work will be done virtually would be helpful, because that, I know when I speak to people, in addition to time, it's the fact that you really have to plan to be available for meetings Saturday mornings throughout the summer, and a lot of people are in and out.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a list of all of that, but I bet that, but then the Civic League should have a list of all area associations, and it should include the Wisconsin Civic League, the Connecticut groups. There's like 3 of them out there. Kathy, you probably have one.
Yeah, the Civic League does have a list. The problem is getting contact with them. Many of them, some of them have websites, some of them have emails, some of them there's no way to know who to talk to.
Yeah. I think we can start. We start, and
Yeah.
you cast your lure out and see what you can get.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe one start would be to send the Civic League organizers, who I think are Charlie Stott and Peter Morrison,
Yeah.
some kind of notice. Hey, we're looking for members. Please send this to all of your associations and let them do it.
Yeah.
And I will also talk it up and get it in the
Yeah,
ad.
that would be great.
Yeah, that's good.
That approach to Charlie and so forth, the head of the Civic League, the 2 presidents, co-presidents, has been tried. It works much better to address people one by one, or to recruit at the summer forum when the people show up who are that interested.
Okay.
But don't expect Libby or anybody else to do your work for you.
No. I'm looking to just get some contacts that we can pursue. Because
And I think,
I
you know,
know,
that if the organizations are having their summer cocktail parties or annual meetings, these groups, these neighborhood associations, that's a good time to get someone to ask people, you know, and you're all in the same place having a meeting.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's too late to get on the agendas for those association meetings, but I think that would be a way as well.
Good thought, Kathy.
I always talk it up at the Tom Never Civic Association, so I'll do it again this year. Our meeting is on the 30th.
You know, and we have the Brand Point meeting on the 23rd. And I know the president pretty well, since she's my wife, so we can make that pitch, and maybe we'll come to the meeting on the 18th, the Civic League thing. I think I did that a couple of years ago. I stood up at the meeting and said, by the way, those of you who are interested, but once again, if we knew that they could continue meeting electronically, they wouldn't feel that, they would feel that it's a lot easier than having to end up going somewhere. By the way, Libby, there was one thing you mentioned that I'm very disappointed to hear. It's nobody's fault, but I'm very upset about it. And that is Tacoma Green. That's 64 housing units for town employees. We can't get that thing done?
Well,
64 units.
it's in a nutshell, the developers have a gap in their financing of about $6.5 million. And they are basically seeking the town to fill that gap. And there's been a lot of discussion about how that would happen, if it can happen, what can requirements would be put in place in order for that to happen. And we had, I can't really get into the details, but suffice it to say that we had an executive session earlier in the week with the housing director, Tucker Holland, our consultant, whose name is Ed Marchand. He's a 40B expert and an affordable housing expert. And he had two other consultants with him, both of whom have been very involved in affordable housing projects in Massachusetts and elsewhere. And one of the takeaways for me from that discussion was affordable housing projects are extremely difficult to get financed anyway. And it's even more difficult in the last year or so because of rising interest rates and construction costs. And all of them are in a state of how are we to fund this. So there's a lot of discussion with tax, a lot of the terms were kind of technical, but tax credit investors and state financing agencies, and there's contingencies and approvals and requirements and criteria and all this stuff has to be all sorted out. But yes, it is disappointing because I think we also feel like we've come so far with that project.
Absolutely.
We don't want to abandon it now or go back to square one now. So I think we're trying to get it worked out, but it is tricky.
It's a pity. 64 units. 64 units.
Yeah, we do also have town meeting approved $1 million for a pilot town employee housing assistance program, and we are working with a couple of people from finance committee, Joe Grouse and Peter Schaefer, and internally figure out how we would set this up, and it's filled with rabbit holes. So, and one of the things we would do right off the bat, provided they're okay with it, is to grant to the Nantucket Community Foundation the money, and they would disperse it based on some allocation criteria that we give them. So, I mean, we could go on all afternoon about this, but for example, we need a little kind of a mission for how this money is going to be allocated. So one of our suggestions under discussion is, should we try to help as many people as possible with the money? Or should we identify like the worst off and give them more money? No matter what we do, people are going to be disgruntled about it. We've talked about, is it for people who own their homes, but their mortgages are more than 40% of their income? Or is it for renters whose housing payments are more than some percentage of their income? And it is just we've a couple times we said, maybe we should just forget it. But then we say, no, we got to try it because we have to do something. And at least if we lay it out, we can maybe find our way through eventually to something that'll mostly work. But anyway, yes, back to Tacoma Green. It is challenging.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that at the town meeting, there certainly was a substantial increase
Yep.
in funding,
Yeah,
whether it's borrowed or not borrowed for.
absolutely.
affordable
We've
housing.
spent, I'm going to say, more money on housing initiatives and housing programs than a city would be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's needed here. It's needed
Yeah,
here.
definitely.
So, yeah, Kathy?
Just two quick questions to the short-term rental group. Libby, do you have any idea on when it would be starting up? I think initially the goal was mid-July and we're kind of there.
The
And
goal,
also-
yeah. Go
And
ahead.
also the second part is, I think I heard you saying that the focus would be on coming up with some kind of a zoning article for next year's town meeting. Is there any indication that there would also be expectations that this group might be working on some of the regulations or some of the potential regulations that might be used under 39, or is it just the zoning?
It's just the zoning. The regulations, I think, are sort of straightforward based on the article, on Article 39. There are a few things that need to be sorted out. And I think the thinking on that is, I mean, I haven't heard anybody say they want the work group to work on the regulations. The discussions have been set. The timing on the regulations, to go to that first, is I've got an internal group working on that, myself, the health director, the planning director, town council, and I think Ken Bogran might be on that group, real estate specialist. We're meeting again, not this coming week, but the week after, and we're hoping to finalize a proposed draft of regulations that we could then present in a pre-public hearing meeting joint with the select board and the Board of Health sometime in early August. And so the idea would be, we have perhaps a workshop with the select board and Board of Health. The only topic would be these draft regs. Maybe we get some input, then we schedule a public hearing. Technically, the Board of Health is to adopt them with approval by the select board. So that's
Okay.
timing on that. The timing on the work group, that's a very good question. And it was acknowledged at this week's board meeting that the timing was supposed to have been mid-July, and now it's probably looking like Denise Kronos sent me something, which is not on my notes right now, but I want to say mid-August-ish.
Okay. But one of the other, just as a follow-up too, because I thought that, a lot of the contentiousness, I think, or some of the contentiousness last year anyway, was on the different kinds of regulations, 2 people per bedroom, 1 car, blah, blah, blah. And I thought that the only way to really resolve those things was to gather the data about the short-term rentals, which you can't have until people register. Because
Yes.
you don't have that information now to know whether that's a good regulation or a bad one.
Exactly. So I think there might be a 2-pronged approach to the regulations. First of all, to adopt something so that we can get the registration program in place,
Right.
but have the regulations be sort of bland at first, pending the acquisition of the data that will be acquired over the next year or so that we can then determine, okay, I'm making this up totally right now, but in certain neighborhoods, it's very bothersome if there's more than 10 people in a house or something like that. So in this neighborhood, let's make it, you can only have 10 people in the house, or you can only have 2 short-term rentals in that neighborhood. So stuff like that can only be, like you're saying, really sorted out through where are the rentals, where are the complaints, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
The registry is a great idea because it's it'll be the first time we actually get real data. You know, I got a kick out of the select board meeting last Wednesday because they decided that there are no such thing as facts anymore. There's only data. No such thing as facts. I mean, that's this world we live in, that there's alternative facts, your fact, my fact,
Yeah,
but at least provide data. And the registry that's what we need, because people are talking. By the way, there's, I must say, you know, we hear so many people complaining. If you look at the short-term rental issue, half the people who are screaming about it say the reason it's an issue is because we're losing local housing, you know, to people short-term renting. The other half of the people scream that it's bad renters, it's noisy and it's disrupting the neighborhood and all of that. And at least maybe the work group will come to a conclusion as to what is the problem we're trying to deal with. Because right now it's a little confusing as to whether it's too much noise and disturbance in neighborhoods, or it's a loss of housing, and no one's sure if one leads to the other or not.
yeah, exactly,
So that's a goal that they're going to have to come up with a conclusion.
definitely.
Anyway, I think it's going to take a lot longer than anyone thinks to get the work group together and to come to conclusions, especially because without the registry, there are no facts, there are no data.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky. Anybody have any other questions? Libby's been very nice to give us a good hour of her time this morning plus, and notwithstanding the fire this morning. So no other questions. Thank you so much for joining us, Libby.
No problem.
Bill, you have a question?
I was just going to add, Libby, you're incredible handling all this stuff. And it's been fun watching you grow in the job.
Thank you, Bill. Thank
We
you.
all agree.
Appreciate
It's
that.
really
Thank you.
challenging these days.
It is, but thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Oh, thank you. So
Thank
continue.
you.
You're welcome to stay. if you'd
I
like.
have one quick question for you all.
Yes.
What did you think about Mary Ann Stanton's idea that we need temporary traffic lights from May to October?
Yeah,
I think it'll never get past the annual town meeting.
Yeah,
or
I
anyway.
thought, wait, is she joking? I don't think she was. Anyway,
There's a lot that Stanton says these days that I disagree with.
well, thank
Anyway,
you all so much. And is anybody from Sconset on the ACNVT? Do you have a Sconset member?
no, we could use
we
somebody.
had someone, but she's gone now, right?
Okay, I'll mention it at the, well, good, because when I go out there on Monday, I'm gonna be repeating what I just said here.
Yeah, I think Sue Matloff was on, she's the one that didn't come to a meeting in 2 years. She's from Wisconsin, so.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody from Matticat?
I don't think so.
Never, we have Bill Gardner's from Quays, where are you, Quays?
Quidnick.
Quidnet, okay. And Peter's from the Cliff. And Kathy's from, yeah, so we have some selection, but we need a little bit broader representation, obviously.
All right, I'll start
All
talking.
right, thank you again.
All right, thank you all.
Okay,
Thanks.
Bye.
Right,
bye. So the next order of business is, I guess we should approve the minutes. Kathy did a nice job with the minutes. And as you can see from the minutes. Hey, Don, nice to see you. You're on mute, but that's okay. Yeah, that's good. I'm looking at the minutes for the meeting was April 9th, so it was a while ago. And at that meeting, you know, we named Kathy to go to the town meeting, which is
Yes, both nights.
both nights, yeah. Yeah, I didn't harp too much on with Libby about the fact that, you know, that to have the full day meeting next year, that what the select board decided was the annual town meeting that occurred this spring, they had 2 nights, 2 weekday nights. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, something like that, from 5 to 8 or 5 to 9. And then what they said is we alternate. So every other year, we do the 2 nights in a row, and then the alternate year, they devote a whole day. And so what they agreed to do on last Wednesday was they picked a date in May, a Saturday, so it's a full day meeting. But to me, that raises the same question: who's going to give, a full day, a full Saturday in May, early May, to dealing with the town meeting, dealing with all of the issues? That's our state legislature, our town meeting, and the same thing's going to happen. Some people will show up for part of it, then they'll leave, and a lot of people won't feel either the need or the desire to spend 8 hours sitting in a room passing these items. So it doesn't encourage me that there's going to be a lot of participation in that. So we need to have a motion to approve the minutes. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Bill. Second? Bill Sherman, thank you. All in favor? Wait, Peter, Don, Bill, good. Kathy, okay. Meeting, okay, minutes are approved. Let me go to the next item on the agenda. So we don't have to talk about the annual town meeting results. I think we heard from Libby, and I'm not sure there's anything more we need to add about that. So we're supposed to have an election now. My term is up. Every year, whenever we have to have these elections. So I'm delighted if anyone would like to step up and either make some nominations or indicate they'd like to spend some time doing all of this work. What do I hear from you folks?
I nominate Peter Halley.
Okay. And as chair,
Yes.
and as this, how about vice chair?
Unless there would be any volunteers, I would nominate your.
Okay, we can elect him. He's not here now, so that's a good way to do that. And as secretary?
What's that lovely woman out in town there?
Yeah, I think, notwithstanding the fact that Kathy's not here during the season, I think she does a good job keeping our minutes and keeping our meetings working. So I think that's a good choice as well.
Up there
Okay.
next week, rest of the summer, so.
Oh, good. Okay, so we have seconds for that? That's late. Any other comments?
If appropriate, move the nominations be closed.
Yes. Okay, a second on that. Okay, second. Okay, so let's have a vote. All in favor of the slate? Say aye. Well, everybody says aye.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations. Great. All right, thank you all. So now, Peter, do you want to start?
Well, if I could find the agenda, I would.
Okay, well, the next item on the agenda is the discussion of our representation on the short-term rental working group. And so what I mentioned during the meeting was, according to the draft that they have, that the select board has been looking at and that the planning board is looking at, we have to, initially it said 2. I think it's so stupid. It's just to say 3, In theory, we have to name 3. The way I thought we would do it is that we would decide who should be our primary person who is willing to get involved with the short-term rental working group. And then we would say that this is our primary person, and then we have an alternative in case that person cannot attend a particular session. And that's what I thought we would end up doing. As I say, at the select board meeting the other day, they know we want a choice of 3, and we're not going to listen to what the organizations say. We want to choose that, which is preposterous, because they don't know.
Was that it? Was that the whole board or just Matt?
That was mostly Matt, but Brooke seemed to agree with that until I talked them out of it, if I can talk them out of it. It's so stupid. So the question is, if we have to give names, the one person whose name we can't give is Kathy, because they've already said that if somebody is in both groups, then they have to give up, then whatever group it is loses it. So, and Kathy, in theory, Kathy and Robin will be the representatives from the Nantucket Together.
Well, I don't know who's gonna be our representatives, actually. We haven't actually met to discuss that either.
I know, but
And like you said,
it's the 2
you're gonna
co-founders.
represent your group,
Yeah,
whatever group
yep.
you're supposed to represent. So I'm not really sure what they mean by if you're in more than one, you lose one. I don't understand that.
Here's what it says. In the event one of the members can wear 2 hats, we can increase the number of at-large members. So they'll just take away a membership from somebody.
That
Can I
makes no
suggest
sense,
this?
but-
We really don't even know what the structure of this group is yet.
Right.
We don't know how they're going to meet. In other words, what the requirements are, whether it be virtual, in-person, hybrid, or whatever. And so what I think we ought to do is have an indication from our members who would want to participate and under what circumstances. I know I speak for myself, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks from approximately the 15th to the 30th, let's say. Then I'll be back for the rest of the summer until, Labor Day or shortly thereafter. So if there are in-person meetings, those are the times when I would be able to responsibly say, I can do this and attend to it. And I don't know about the rest of you. And so it seems to me we can't appoint, we can't appoint anybody at this meeting, but we can get indications of how many of us are interested in doing this and would be present if it's in-person meetings, or would be willing to do it if it's a virtual situation. And lastly, based on what Gary said, I do think that up to now we have policy on this issue, and I think our only position is that whatever is good for full-time residents should be the same thing for non-voting residents with respect to STRs. I think that's kind of where we are, and we'd have to develop a different position if we want to go beyond that. So that's a lot of different things.
I'd like to move that we tentatively appoint, subject to willingness to serve, tentatively appoint Peter Holly, Gary Beller, Peter Hahn, and Kathy Baird, with the understanding that if Kathy, for example, has a conflict and can be appointed in another capacity, that the remaining 3 would be our appointees, and again, subject to their willingness to serve.
I'll second that. I don't know if I can second it as a
Yes, of
under
course.
consideration.
No,
Parliamentarian says yes.
Yeah, the only problem I have is I don't feel very comfortable that Kathy will be able to dissociate herself with the fact that she's one of the founders of Nantucket Together. And I don't feel very comfortable about that. And they're going to have a voice at the table, Nantucket Together. The great thing about what Kathy and Robin and those people have done is they have managed to get a vote, a seat at the table. That's really, really important in this issue. And that's what she's known for. And I don't feel very comfortable about having her represent us and say, well, I'm not really representing them. I don't think people will see that.
That's why, Gary, I think of it as a preliminary recommendation.
Okay.
Final recommendation would be based on considerations like what you just spoke of and interest, willingness to serve.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I think as they get that there that you know, we'd be losing a seat,
Yep.
then that's
We could
probably,
lose a whole seat.
yeah. I mean, if that's gonna go forward and that won't get changed, then I
Yeah.
agree with you, Gary.
You know,
If it will,
it's in writing.
yeah. But, you know, so is that you needed 2, not 3.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
They haven't decided on that finally yet. Okay, so let's have well, Peter, you're running the meeting now. You want to vote on that?
Yeah, sure. So
I'll-
everybody in
I'll
favor?
second that. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Everybody in favor,
Okay.
say aye.
Approved, Don,
Right,
approved,
and-
yeah, okay.
Is there anybody opposed?
No,
Hearing none, it carries unanimously.
great.
I must say, I wasn't able to see Don Green's hand. With Don, did you vote affirmatively or abstain? You're on.
He's on mute.
Don is still on mute, I believe.
So if you voted affirmatively, raise your hand.
Still thinking,
He's still thinking. Okay,
Okay,
so he abstained from the vote.
I have a broader opinion, you know, a broad,
can you turn up your mic a little bit? Because I think you're on mute. I just heard what you said, but very, very slightly.
well, I think they should hear from voices they don't always hear voices from.
Well, we only have the voices that are on this committee right now.
Like I haven't served on a committee.
Well, what's your view? Do you understand the committee? Well, I mean, the basic.
I agree with the view, but I'd like to hear what other people are saying.
Can I suggest, Don, that at the next meeting, we may be able to take a final vote on appointments, and that would be a time to get your thoughts fully clarified and sort that out. Come down to 2 or 3, whatever is the call from the committee being formed. So perhaps to stay in this time, if that's your pleasure.
So I think we have our preliminary slate then of people, and we will bring this up again at the next meeting and hopefully have more information about what the process is and the commitment requirements and all the rest of it, and we can finalize what we need to do. But at this point, I think going further with this issue is kind of just shooting in the dark, and
Right.
we ought to go to the next agenda item, which is
The next agenda item is talking about the next meeting or future meetings. And the question is, you know, if we have to meet well, Peter's gone for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm not available on the 23rd of July. So what I was thinking, and Peter's not back till the 30th.
Yeah, and I'm just getting my calendar up to see what these days look like. So
I'm thinking about August 6th,
August 6th would be, a Saturday.
Saturday. Then you'll be back
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be here on August 6th.
because we don't know yet whether Libby thinks we'll be able to meet electronically. perhaps.
I think we just schedule and then we roll with bunches, and it's
Yeah.
the best we can do.
And
So
if it's necessary for us to have a sooner meeting, Peter, you can just call a sooner meeting. You'll have to do it, you know, even though you're not on Ireland, you can still do it on your computer. But
should we schedule the whole rest of the summer right now, subject to further changes? But at least we'll, you know, do we do it every other week, every third week, or what is the will of this group?
August 6th and August 20 would sound good to me.
yeah, August 6th and August 20, that sounds good.
Okay, I've got that. Should we go beyond that to September 3rd or?
That's the last meeting. That's normally our last meeting, right, Bill Sherman, right? Remember, we used to meet around Labor Day, that was it?
We often did just the Saturday following Labor Day.
Yeah,
So Labor Day is late this year, isn't it? It's the 5th. So that would be the 10th.
from the 20th to the 5th is fine.
No, the 5th is Labor Day. I'm saying that's a Monday.
Oh, so what's the Saturday?
3rd or the 10th.
The 3rd or the 10th.
So if we meet on the 20th, the 3rd is 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I think we ought to do the 3rd because
Yep,
at some point this short-term rental thing is going to pick up.
yep,
And that may be that we will need before we go away for the summer, for the winter or the fall, to touch base with each other on this issue, to instruct further whoever is going to be participating in the group. So we'll do the 3rd, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes.
And we'll sort of publish that as a schedule. And then I have a feeling that if we actually go through with virtual meetings at the end of the year, that we may have some need in the fall to have a virtual meeting on this or other issues. Let me also, so we'll do that. Everybody's in agreement. I don't think we need to take a vote on our
right.
schedule. What I would like to do is at the next meeting, because I think we're running out of time now, is perhaps if each of you would send to me or think for the next meeting, we'll have an agenda item on really what should our priorities be in terms of what we're going to devote time and effort to. And we've had a number in the past, some of which have been successful and some which haven't. I'll put the noise issue as an unsuccessful one. Gary's involved in the climate change.
Yeah, but I assume that this committee's, I'm willing to continue serving as our representative on the Coastal Resiliency Committee. I assume that's.
Yeah, I think that you should continue doing that, especially because your feet are going to be wet before ours are, if nothing is done there. And if anybody has a special interest in some area, like traffic circles or whatever, I think it would be useful knowing that, because we might be able to, better devote our efforts with somebody who really is having a traffic flow issue or that issue or that another issue. It'd be helpful to know.
Well,
that.
maybe, Peter, maybe we ought to, you remember several years ago on the traffic issue, we met with Mike Burns, who was the town's, right? He was the traffic planner.
Yeah.
So maybe now that we have somebody, maybe we ought to have a meeting with him, since he's off island anyway. And if we're allowed, assuming we're allowed to meet remote, that.
Yeah, I mean, we have in the past met with the traffic planner, but I think there's been nobody in that position for about 2 or 3 years now.
There has not been.
Didn't Mike resign? Didn't Mike resign?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And so I'll get the name of the new traffic planner and that we'll contact him or to see, we've had the airport commissioner or director of the airport, whatever in the past, and the airport is I think, continuing issue for non-voting taxpayers and everybody alike. I'm just trying to sort of figure what issues are of interest to all of you that are of importance to the island. It'd be nice if the select board would tell us what they'd like to hear from us on, if anything, because we're a creature of the select board. But we should, I know Gary mentioned hearing from the newest select.
Yeah, we haven't ever had a meeting with Brooke Moore.
Yeah, Brooke Moore.
Maybe she ought to be on the 20th or something, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we'll try to line up, because we basically
six.
have 3 more meetings during the season and line up 3 people. And in the meantime, let us know, or at the next meeting, what are the issues, the burning issues that you think that we should be addressing with the town. And we'll also start looking, continue looking for more members.
Yeah,
And,
that's our most important. And as Bill Sherman said before, Bill is completely correct that the best way to add members to our board is to speak to people you know personally. And I've tried it with a few people. And I've gotten to the point where they said, well, I might be willing to do that. And I send them the information and they look at the form and then they say it's Saturday mornings. And so far I haven't had any takers. I assume that there's no rule that requires us to meet on Saturday mornings. Is that right?
That's correct. It's
So-
when it's convenient for all the folks.
I think that, let me guess about the history of this. My guess is that in the old days, weekenders, really weekenders, and there are plenty today. There are lots of people, when I look at the Tradewind aviation schedule that I fly on, those Thursday flights, packed, people come to the island Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, late Sunday and early. I'm amazed how many flights there are Monday morning, starting at 6 in the morning. There are a ton of people. They fly 8 flights out of here on Monday morning, starting early. 8 flights a day. People returning to either Teterboro or Westchester, and I don't know the other place they fly. So it seems to me that in the old days, when people, especially for weekenders, the Saturday was a good time. They were here and we had to meet in person.
I think the other
And
thing
so
too,
when
Gary,
could
was
you meet in person?
the meeting space. We could always be guaranteed that we could get a room at the safety
another good
center
point,
on a
Kathy.
Saturday.
That's
Now
another
it
good
doesn't
point.
matter.
That's another good point. So what do you think? So a combination of A, we always could get the space, and B, we usually found it easy to get a member of the select board or from the planning department or from, the DPW, because nobody else was clamoring for them during the week. But I just wonder if we should think about that a little more.
My suggestion would be to stay with Saturday, since we all have been accommodated on that thing. But if it takes moving in order to recruit 1 or 2 additional members, let's take it seriously to find out when they would prefer to meet.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. I personally like Saturday mornings because it's my SPF 100.
Well, another thing, I mean, most of the time when I've talked to people, it's been the requirement to physically be present and be on island for all the meetings. That's been the hard part. So if we get the okay to move on forever virtually, I think there'll be a lot more people willing to do it.
Yep. And may I suggest other initiatives for the remaining summer, that somebody from ACNVT be available for the summer forum, not only to participate, but also to have sign-up sheets for ACNBT to submit to Libby, and to hopefully have a few words on the agenda on behalf of ACNBT. And then beyond that, as many as can speak of ACNBT at their respective area association meetings to enhance the recruiting effort.
Yeah. What is the date of the summer forum, Bill? Do you know that?
Thought it was the 18th of July, but I'm not positive. As soon as I hear, if I do, I'll pass it along.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to be off island on the 18th, so we'll need a volunteer to do that. And Gary, if
I'll go to the meeting.
you're
Yeah.
available, that'd be great. Yeah.
Terrific.
Do we need to
Can I
nominate?
suggest,
ahead.
one other possible? Sir? Roberto Santa Maria, we had him on for COVID.
Yeah.
He'll be taking over and administering the short-term rental thing. So we might want to hear from him at some point this year.
Good thought.
Yeah, he's going to be a major regulator if that comes to pass.
Right.
Yeah, let's put him on the list in the queue, and when we now have sort of I think at least 3 people: the traffic planner, Brooke Moore, Roberto Santa Maria, and let's just see who we can get first. And I think we need to tell them what we want them to talk about or address.
You think we need the guy from DPW back, Stephen?
Stevie, yeah, DPW, absolutely, because I think they've got a lot of problems that it'd be nice to be aware of. He's basically shorthanded and infrastructure issues. The infrastructure really is wearing thin on the island in a lot of different ways. I would think he's perhaps the most important of them because it's something that's current. He has current information rather than traffic planner who might plan a lot of things that will never get approved. Okay, so let's see if we can do that for the 3rd or the 6th of the 20th. Okay. And is Bill Gardner assigned to tell Peter Kahn what happened at this election?
Yep.
Already done.
Congratulate him.
Already done.
Okay, good. Do we have anything else today? It's been a fruitful meeting, I think. And
Peter, are you going to do the outreach to the potential speakers?
I could probably use some help. I will start I'll start with Stephen, okay, and send him a note and ask him if he can speak to us and tell him it's been traditional for the head of the DPW, as he knows, because he's addressed us before.
Yep.
And what are the main issues that you all think that Stephen should be addressing so we don't blindside him with
Well,
our
the stormwater problem.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're also fussing with what to do with the transfer station. Yeah, at the end of the day, no one thinks that we can keep, the transfer station in Mattocket for the rest of, with coastal tides rising the way they are. And they started looking at some properties near the airport, I think, but you might talk about that too.
Okay, I'll put those down on a list for him. What I'll do is I'll send him the invitation, and perhaps we'll just circulate it to everybody so that you know what's being done. It'll be short and sweet. Good. Gary has been an outstanding chairman, And I think we need to recognize that in some appropriate way. I don't know if it's against the open meeting laws, but to have a little cocktail reception at some point for Gary, which I'd be happy to host some point during later on in the summer when it's
Excellent idea.
yeah. And I frankly think that it would be not a bad idea for all of us to get together, not to discuss anything other than to
Right.
get to know each other.
It's a good idea.
Great idea.
Okay.
Also, just so you know, I have that final annual report
Mhm.
to send in to the town. So that'll go in way ahead of schedule. We'll be done with that. So
Yeah.
that'll be fine. And
That'd be good to circulate to everybody. So that
yes.
Yeah.
it
that's
has not
idea.
already been done. Yeah.
And then on this recording, so I can do the minutes, I didn't take any notes. I could barely just be awake. So what I'll do is.
Play back the tape. Take your time. Kathy, take your time. Just play back the tape.
I know, but I can't see, the way it works is you have to tell the town to post the video. I can't log in now because of all of their security stuff. I can't log in and see it on Zoom. So I'm gonna have the town post it on YouTube and then I'll be able to see it.
No
Okay.
problem. That's fine. There's no rush on that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Kathy, when do you return?
I'll be on the island on the 26th and then for the rest of the summer, probably through September.
Great. Okay, so yeah, the next meeting will be, because I'll be out and you'll be out, but if I can do this from not Nantucket, we won't have another aborted meeting like the last one. Good, okay. Is there a motion to adjourn or anything else that needs to be discussed today?
So, motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.
Thank you.